Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope wherever you guys may find yourself across the nation or across the world, you are having a spectacular Tuesday and you have gone out and read the anonymous mailbag and all of the best things in life have followed you. Several different things I want to dive into today as we get rolling. LeBron effectively quitting on the Lakers in what has become a disastrous decision to join a West Coast team. The Martina Navratilova controversy that blew up last week when she had the gall to say that men who become women should not be able to compete with other women because they dominate and they have an advantage when it comes to height, when it comes to strength, when it comes to biology. Bigger, stronger, faster. Iowa radio announcer has been suspended for the remainder of the season for describing a black Maryland basketball player who is 6'11" and 260 pounds as having an impressive King Kong-like performance. Right decision, wrong decision. And Bob Kraft forces us to think about a really intriguing question that logically I can't understand why there's a difference in the legal treatment, and that is this, and I'm going to break it down for you at the end of the show. If a woman has the right to choose when and where she creates and gives birth to a baby, i.e. pro-choice and abortion, Roe v. Wade is the law of the land, how in the world do we also not allow women to decide to sell sex to men if there are two consenting adults involved? How is that considered to be a crime? Think about it, contemplate it. I'll circle back around to it for the end of this show. But first, let's go into this LeBron mess that's going on with the Lakers. And I want to begin with this provocative idea. The Lakers should trade LeBron James, if they could, for Anthony Davis. Because right now, the Lakers are on a one-way train towards obsolescence. And LeBron James is the conductor of their runaway train that is careening down hills, horrid, hooting style. Shout out Emily Dickinson. Last night, the LeBron James Lakers managed to lose to the Memphis Grizzlies, who basically have no team at all and are trying to tank to rebuild their franchise. This is their third straight loss on the road. They lost on the road against the Atlanta Hawks, who are not good at basketball. They lost on the road by 13 to the New Orleans Pelicans, who are not good at basketball, particularly when Anthony Davis is not playing. And now they have lost on the road against the Memphis Grizzlies to fall to 11th place, I believe it is, maybe 10th place in the Western Conference. They are several games out. I think it's 11th. I think they're behind the Kings. I think they're now tied with the Timberwolves, which would be 9-10. They are in 11th place right now. And as a result, this is an ugly situation. I don't know if you watched last night's game, but there was one play in particular that stood out to me. In the fourth quarter, the Lakers are down 4. LeBron James comes back on defense. His man gets a pass at the top of the key and is wide open for 3. LeBron stays in the paint, doesn't even move. When the 3 is drained, he immediately starts to blame other people for what happened on the possession. LeBron doesn't like his teammates. LeBron's teammates don't like him. And I think we have got another situation, just like we did with Kobe, where the Lakers are going to be caught with a contract and a rapidly declining asset. LeBron James turned 35 on December 30th. Next year, he will turn 36 years old. I don't believe the Lakers are going to make the playoffs this year, and I'm not sure what they're going to be able to do lest they trade away the entire franchise's future to get Anthony Davis, which I don't buy into at all. I think what has happened here is pretty straightforward. LeBron James made a decision to move to Los Angeles. He thought talent would follow him. Instead, talent doesn't really like LeBron, and he's going to be left marooned as a Laker with no chance to win another championship as his relevance continues to decline every single year. Now, during the middle of this Memphis Grizzlies game, LeBron allowed a video to be tweeted out that was date and time-stamped. This is pretty wild. A date and time-stamped video was put out of LeBron James the night before he did not play against the Golden State Warriors. okay? The night before he did not play before the Golden State Warriors, he made the decision to hang out with 2 Chainz, work on a rap song while drinking wine up past midnight. You want to talk about load management, and no, I'm not talking about Robert Kraft right now. This is an unbelievable story that he allowed a date and time-stamped video to prove that rather than play basketball, he made the decision to go and hang out with a rapper in Los Angeles. Now, I think this is emblematic of the choices LeBron James is making now and why the Lakers have ended up holding the bag here on a declining asset and made a really bad decision. This is, I believe, an unbelievably bad look for the Lakers. I don't think LeBron's ever going to be able to put together a team that's going to win a championship, and I think this is going to happen. I think things are going to turn nasty in a hurry for LeBron as everything continues to roll in the city of Angels. People in Los Angeles are not going to roll very well with LeBron James as disaster continues to follow him. He wants Luke Walton to be fired. He gets every coach fired. His teammates don't like him. The youth of the Lakers is actually the future of this team, not LeBron James. Honestly, the Lakers don't need LeBron at all. This is going to be a disaster. It already is a disaster. There's no doubt LeBron James thought that he was going to go to LA and that it was going to be salvation. It's amazing. The Clippers are actually in much better shape right now than the Lakers. And LeBron is going to continue to sabotage his legacy over the next several years, in my opinion. All right, several other things. I want to dive into this story. Did you guys see this story, which blew my mind, about transgender athletes? All right, I got a story for you that I feel like at times I am the last reasonable person on the planet. Did you see the story that came out from NBC News saying that people don't really have a problem with transgender athletes until they start dominating sports? In particular, when they are men who decide to become women and they have the advantages of biology which have allowed them to be bigger, stronger, and faster than women, even if they get a biological treatment designed to lower their overall testosterone level, they are still better than all women, right? A top male athlete who decides to get hormone therapy and become a woman is still going to dominate, especially if they are in their 20s or 30s. All right, so this is a story that I find fascinating, and I want to lead it off with this example. I was out to dinner the other night with a law school classmate, and he said that his 4-year-old, they got an email for the elite private school that she attended that everyone should know that a 4-year-old in the school system was gender non-conforming, and so she was not going to be the gender that she was. She wanted to be he. I said, are you kidding me? 4-year-olds are all gender non-conforming, okay? Moreover, as my wife said when she heard this story, we won't let our 4-year-old pick his own food because all he would eat is chips and cookies for every meal for the rest of his life. This is pure insanity. We are losing all touch with reasonableness. I don't know why reasonable people won't come forward and say, look, I don't have any problem if you want to change your gender. But if you decide to change your gender before you are 18 years old, it shouldn't be allowed. Think back to when you were 15, 16, or 17 years old in high school. Think about all the ridiculous things you might have done or others you knew might have done. It is shocking to me that medical professionals will agree to change the gender of a teenager before that teenager has even reached the age of majority and can even think about whether or not they might be just a little bit depressed or just a little bit of a wacky time in their life. I think this is pure balderdash. I think this is the height of insanity, okay? It is not transphobia to believe that someone should wait till they're at least 18 to decide what gender they are. And also, biology is real. You have a penis or you have a vagina. The idea that you can decide to be whatever gender you want to be and then play a sport that is different than your gender is one of the most ludicrous ideas I have ever heard in my life. Where are all the reasonable people? I think they're afraid of being shouted down by all of the tiny segment of people on social media who would attack them. This is what happened to Martina Navratilova. Remember Martina Navratilova, one of the best women's tennis players of all time? She got absolutely ripped when she had the gall to say in an op-ed piece for the Sunday Times of London, a man can decide to be female, take hormones if required by whatever sporting organization is concerned, win everything in sight, and perhaps earn a small fortune, and then reverse his decision and go back to making babies if he so desires. It's insane and it's cheating. And she was ripped for this. She was ripped for this, for having the stones, the balls, the DBAP lifestyle to say, wait a minute, this is beyond the point of being inclusive and diverse and welcoming. You can't have male athletes deciding to become women, getting some testosterone removed or estrogen pumped in or whatever else, and then allowing them to compete against female athletes. Because if men decide to do this who are good athletes, they will win every sport and they will set every record. This is not crazy. This is not some wild hypothesis by me. This is biological fact. And so when I see these stories happening, I just sit back and I say, where is the reasonableness? Where are the adults in these kind of situations to stand up and say, you know what? This is beyond absurd. This makes no sense. This is completely illogical. I'm going to have to block this guy because he's too fucking stupid. So you allow kids to drive at 16, but you don't think they can make decisions? There's a difference between driving a car and getting your dick cut off. All right? Is that a complicated concept to understand? I think that a 16-year-old can be trusted to drive to the grocery store or drive before midnight, even though 16-year-olds often make bad decisions. But there's a big difference between allowing a 16-year-old to make a permanent decision about whether he removes his penis forever and whether or not he goes out to Sonic and gets some tater tots and some mozzarella sticks on his own. Are people so stupid that they can't understand the difference there? We don't allow 16-year-olds to vote for president, but we allow them to change their gender? What is the world coming to? Why does nobody... There are medical professionals out here. Why can they not say, yeah, we're not going to allow this? This is not a good move. And then if you do change your gender, you shouldn't be able to compete in high school athletics. This is ludicrous. This is absolute insanity. And speaking of absolute insanity, Iowa radio announcer Gary Dolphin. Do you guys know this story? This happened last week. What an amazing name Gary Dolphin is. Gary Dolphin. Tell me if you know this Iowa story. We have a ton of viewers and listeners. I didn't realize how many in Iowa that all blew me up with this story when it happened. And I'm surprised it hasn't turned into a bigger story on a national level. But last week, I believe it was, Iowa went and played against Maryland. I believe they were on the road. And when they were there, they lost late in a game because a player for Maryland, 6'11", 260-pound black kid, played really, really well in the game. And in the postgame, I'd encourage you to go listen to the podcast on the radio show this morning. In the postgame, Gary Dolphin said that the guy had played like King Kong out on the court. And I'm going to read you exactly what he said because I think this is significant, all right? said he had played like King Kong out on the court, meaning he was a beast, meaning he was like Tyrannosaurus Rex, meaning that he was an animal out there and nobody could stop him. I tweeted out the link to this story. And it was a game that was played, and the player, 6'11" black kid, as a result, Iowa suspended this guy, and he's forbidden from working on Iowa games for the rest of the season. And he had to issue a press release. He said, and this is a statement, he had to apologize. During the broadcast, I used a comparison when trying to describe a talented Maryland basketball player. In no way did I intend to offend or disparage the player. I take full responsibility for my inappropriate word choice and offer a sincere apology to him and anyone else who was offended. I wish the Iowa Hawkeye players, coaches, and fans all the very best as they head into the final stretch of the season. I will use this as an opportunity to grow as a person and learn more about unconscious bias. All right, first of all, I don't believe that unconscious bias is really a thing. You know, like it seems like just two words that are thrown together. You're either biased or you aren't biased. And here, this was not, in my opinion, bias. All right? Unconscious bias would be deciding that somebody was not good. I don't even know what unconscious bias is. Somebody had a funny response. They said unconscious bias is something you don't know you have, but other people who don't know you can claim you have. This guy should have never apologized. In my entire life in media, 15 years now, written millions of words, said millions of words, most of them live in my life. I have never, ever apologized for anything that I have ever said, okay? We have got to stop being stupid on stories like this and focus instead on intent, okay? The entire purpose, by and large, of our criminal justice system is we punish crimes that have both two things, right? A mens rea, which is typically an intent, and an actus rea, in the old Latin, an act. There are very few strict liability crimes in this country. We have made race a strict liability crime in this country, but only for white men. If a black guy had said this guy behaved like King Kong out on the court, nobody would have demanded that he be fired. Nobody would have demanded that he be suspended. Remember, Steve Harvey came on ABC's broadcast and said that the Golden State Warriors had a bunch of gorillas running all over the court and nobody was going to stop them, right? Nobody even blinks. Yet this guy who's been calling games for 20 plus years has done absolutely nothing wrong, and he gets suspended. And you know what we did? I thought this was interesting. I feel like very often we have started to always placate over the last 15 years, over the last 10 years, over the last 5 years. We have started to placate the pussies of this universe. If you complain rather than call you out for being a loser and needing to deal with the fact that you can't be perpetually offended by everything, people like the University of Iowa and unfortunately like Gary Dolphin immediately fall on the sword and apologize and say that they have behaved in an inappropriate fashion the moment they get a scintilla of complaint. You know what we did, what I thought was interesting? On Outkick this morning, we opened up phone lines for an hour. And we said we do something that I think is fun on Outkick called the Outkick Jury. We have 10 open phone lines. 10 people can call in all over the country. The first 10 to call in get to contribute to the show. And we'll poll them on what they think. And then after we did the Outkick Jury, and every single person who called in said this is absurd, this guy shouldn't have had to step down, we then took the next step and we said, okay, I only want black guys to call in. I was racist and I said, I only want black callers to give me your opinions on this story. Because I think we have sent a message that if one person of color is upset by something, that white people are so afraid that they curl up in the fetal position, and there's a tiny scintilla of black people that are offended by everything. and they make a living off being perpetually offended. The Jamel Hills of the world. Everything is racist. Everything is offensive. The vast majority of reasonable people, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, gay, straight, male, female, something other than male or female, the vast majority of them think that we have lost our way because social media is now driving an unbelievable absurdity. So we opened up the phone lines. We probably took 25 calls, only black callers all over the nation listening to my show. One guy said he thought that the suspension was justified, and even he didn't think the suspension should exist for the rest of the season. It's unbelievable when you really break it down how absurd this entire story is. And yet it continues to occur, and reasonable people are so afraid of getting caught up in the mob of social justice warriors that they are causing more problems by not standing up and just saying, you know what, this is wrong. I give credit to Doug Adler, who got fired for using the phrase gorilla effect. He ended up being able to come back and get rehired by ESPN. All of that is, I think, a big reason why the middle is coming undone and the polar perspectives of our country are losing their minds, okay? This Gary Dolphin story is a great example of a story where there should have been no outrage. The intent was to convey a compliment. If a black guy had said it, no one even blinks. If this is something that is fascinating to you, I'd encourage you to go listen to the podcast, because I think Outkick, amazingly, has become one of the few places where voice of reason and rational, logical dialect still occurs. Speaking of that, final situation here. I want you to think about this. I started off the show talking about it. All right? I want you to think about this for a moment. Robert Kraft is being charged with paying money to get a blowjob or to get a hand job or to get jerked off or whatever else. Right now in America, with the Roe v. Wade case, women have the right to choose to have abortions. They can decide when and where they want to have a child. I agree with Roe v. Wade. Some people get upset with me. I am pro-choice, okay? Personally. What is amazing about the logic of Roe v. Wade, it is predicated on the idea that women control their bodies and women have the right to choose. How is it that Roe v. Wade can be the law of the land for America when it comes to abortion, yet women are not allowed to sell their bodies to consenting men for sex in exchange for money? How is it that you can say a woman can decide whether to give birth to a living creature in her body or not? She has the power of life or death over the piece of her body where she is carrying a baby. And I agree with that. The kid doesn't get a vote. But you also simultaneously are saying a woman cannot decide that she wants to prostitute herself for money. The logic doesn't add up. And people, some of you are dumb, and you immediately say, well, sex trafficking goes on. Well, people get drunk from alcohol too. It doesn't mean that people who want to drink alcohol and not drive a car are forbidden from doing it. In this country, we have a fundamental misallocation of logic in many different spheres and influences. But how in the world is it possible that we allow abortion to exist under the credo of a woman has the right to choose and control what she does for her own body, but we will not allow a woman to sell sex to men who want to pay for it? It's nonsensical. I would love to hear somebody make an argument for why the logic of Roe v. Wade, which allows women to decide when and where they want to have children, doesn't apply to women being able to decide what jobs they want to have. See, I am of the believer of the power of the individual. And sometimes that gets people upset. I believe that historically in America, the lesson we have found is that if you legalize something, using alcohol as an example, which has a substantial demand, you take that something out of the black market and allow industry and market and commerce to distribute it at a high level. Think about the black market for alcohol and liquor. It doesn't exist because we have created an efficient way for people to buy beer and buy liquor. And as a result, almost no one ever dies because they get a bad batch of alcohol. Back in the days of Prohibition, when people had stills that they were creating whiskey from, people would show up and they would get insanely sick and sometimes die because of alcohol being unsafe. The other day, 90 people died in India because they consumed unsafe alcohol. There's almost no black market that creates an opportunity for someone to die from alcohol because we legalized it. But before we legalized it, we had an entire cottage industry of people trying to bring alcohol and liquor to the market. It's why I believe in legalizing many non-deadly drugs, such as marijuana, such as cocaine, things that you typically take and don't die from. I wouldn't legalize heroin. I think we have way too many pain pills and opioids out there that people are able to consume. But why is the logic not applied also to prostitution that we apply in the world of abortion? And why do all these so-called feminists? I always say I'm a feminist, and it drives people crazy. And when I say I am a feminist, what I say is, what does that mean to me? Women should be able to do anything they want. That's what it means. Just like I believe men should be able to do anything they want as consenting adults, I believe also that women should be able to do it. Why are all these hardcore feminists not out here saying, you know what? If a woman wants to sell sex, she should have the right to sell sex. There is I think everybody would agree with me right now, there is far more demand for sex in this world than there is a supply of sex. There are very few men out there you've ever heard say, you know what? I could not have any more sex at all. Right? I've never heard a man say, you know what? I'm having so much sex right now, I couldn't even have an element of more sex. I am a markets-based guy. When there is demand for something, and it is legal or should be legal in my opinion, I think the supply should be allowed to create and meet to create markets. Once you regulate, tax the markets, you create transparency, which limits the amount of crime that exists, which allows police officers and people who want to enforce the law to chase other aspects of more serious criminality. I don't understand why there isn't a push to allow what Robert Kraft wanted to do, go get jerked off. Now, some people say, well, what about sex trafficking? That's different. I'm saying a consensual decision to sell sex for money. There are lots of women out there right now who have crappy jobs that would rather get paid $100 to jerk off a dude than they would go work at Walmart all day. Here's your options. You can get paid $100 to jerk off a dude, or you can go stock shelves in Walmart all day for $4, $5, $6, whatever it is. People should have the opportunity to make that economic decision. I believe in choice. I believe women should have the right to decide whether or not to have a baby. And I also believe that women should have the right to sell or not sell sex if they so desire. And for men out there who are drawing a bright line between paying for sex and not paying for sex, I will tell you this. Every single person out there who is male and has ever had sex has paid for it. Every single one of you who has ever had sex, congrats on having sex, by the way, you have paid for it in some way. You paid for it in dinner. You paid for it in time. You have paid for sex. The entire foundation of the world is predicated on men paying women for sex. And a lot of you have paid a lot more for sex than you would have paid if you had just paid directly for the sexual act. Period. All right. I love all of you. If you enjoy the show, share it with your friends. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. Kisses, DBAP boys and girls, unless you need to SBAP. I will talk to you tomorrow morning at 6 to 9 a.m. and in 30 minutes on television on FS1. I'll see you guys. This has been Outkick the Show.